Bait though. Not much to say about bait though. I mean, it's pretty simple, to understand how it works. You target a set spell or trap card your opponent has on his side of the field. Reveal the target. Force the activation of the trap if it's a trap. If it's the wrong timing, negate the effect and destroy it. But if it's the right timing, resolve the effect. And if it's a spell, just put it back face down. And of course, Beidou goes back in the deck regardless of what happens. It just goes back in the deck unless you negate Beidou itself. Then it just goes to the grave. There's a ruling which can be useful, which is where my little YUGI-Tip comes from. Is when you play Beidou and target a face down card, and Beidou is not negated, so Beidou resolves. It forces the face down card gets revealed. If it's a trap, like let's say it's compulse, it will resolve. Compulse will do its effect. But because Beidou, was the one to activate it and whatnot, compulse resolves with Beidou, so you can't change something to it like Stardust Assault Mode or 7 Tools of Mana or anything like that. You have to actually respond to Beidou. If you don't respond to Beidou and you let Beidou resolve, you can't respond to the trap that Beidou activates. So that I was in a scenario where I had Stardust Assault Mode. I played Beidou, my opponent's face down card, and it was compulse. Now I believe I can negate it. I could just change Stardust effect and negate compulse, so I could keep my Stardust, but I couldn't keep my Stardust Assault Mode. Once I checked the rulings later, it turned out I was wrong. I couldn't negate it because I can't chain to it because it resolves with Beidou. Since I didn't stop Beidou, obviously compulse works. So I lost, so actually I was supposed to lose my Stardust Assault Mode and pretty much lose the duel at that point, since I had the advantage with Assault Mode, and losing Assault Mode would have lost me the duel. But my opponent didn't know, I didn't know. We just went with the idea that I could negate it, could negate compulse, but now I know, and knowing's half the battle, right? So since now I know, it's like, okay, I gotta be careful. Especially, people are starting to play compulse. Granted, it's only at 1, but they are. Same as Wing Blast, you know what I mean? Some people are playing it. Even Regeki. Basically, any card that is chainable that could have destroyed Stardust Assault Mode, for example, but because Stardust Assault Mode has an effect to chain to it and negate it, it won't work. But because of Beidou, that will bypass that fact, and I could end up defeating my own Assault Mode, right? So it's good to know that, to keep in mind. There's a couple times where I played, I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna play Beidou. Normally I would, but if it's a card that could kill my Assault Mode, I don't want my Assault Mode to get destroyed. So it makes no sense to play the Beidou, because I could actually just end up defeating myself when I already have the advantage. So I get a little extra cautious with Beidou because of that. But besides that, it was the fact that because of that ruling, because of that fact, it's like I realized it's like, well, since I can't chain to the activation of somebody's trap when Beidou forces it to activate and to resolve, my opponent can't do it either. Which means I can actually set a trap, not in the same turn. Like, let's say I already have a trap set. I could play Beidou. Let's say my opponent has a great legendary 6-hammer Shien. They could even have Assault Mode, whatever. They could have a way to counter my trap that I want to activate. Let's say I want to pretend I have Ring of Destruction. Let's say. So I play Ring. I could play Ring of Destruction, destroy his Assault Mode, right, and then deal him 3,000 points of damage, as well as myself, and he'll lose because I have more life than him. But because he has Assault Mode, he could just negate the trap. So I can't play it. I could play it, but he'll just negate it, so then it'll just be worthless, right? And I just lose by him attacking me, right? But I could play Beidou, target my face down Ring of Destruction, or any card that has some type of a useful effect, like Compulse, Wing Blast, Karma Cut, stuff like that. that's any use, or just a card or just a trap that I want to work, like chain material, for example. If I already have Fusion Gate on the field, and my opponent has a Stardust Assault mode, you know what I mean, and I want to, or a Shien, let's just say Shien, and I have a face down chain material that was already set on the field the turn earlier, I could play Bait Doll. Typically, people won't want to stop Bait Doll. That's from my own personal experience. People tend to not want to stop Bait Doll. They don't feel it as a threat. But once you do something with it crazy, and they be like, "Oh my God, I should have stopped it." Yes, you should have. Don't underestimate Bait Doll. So you can play Bait Doll to force the activation of your chain material. Since it's the right timing, bang! Now chain material's effect is in play. Bait Doll goes back in the deck, and since you have Fusion Gate on the field, now you can start fusing like crazy. So it's like, yeah, I can use this to activate a card that I don't want to be stopped. So basically, it turns any of my cards into like a super poly, as it were. The whole they can't chain to it thing. So you can use Bait Doll to literally activate a trap to prevent somebody from being able to chain to it, to prevent a 7 tools. They can't trap stun it because they have to chain trap stun to Bait Doll. They can't play trap stun after Bait Doll resolves. You know what I mean? Because whatever trap you force to activate with Bait Doll resolves with Bait Doll in its own chain. It resolves. It does what it does. Then after that, anything goes. But since my trap was already active and already is doing its thing, there's no point playing trap stun because it's not going to negate the effect. It's not going to stop it from doing what it's doing. So, stuff like that is used to, it's just awesome, the ability to activate something and no one can respond to it. Being able to activate your Royal Decree and no one can 7 tools it. You know what I mean? Be able to play your trap stun and no one can, counter it. So, those are some useful tips for Bait Doll that you can use. Let's see what else they have. If Jinzo's on the field, that's the best time to play Bait Doll because all the traps can't be activated, so they will all be the wrong time. So you'll just be destroying everything for free. Don't even have to worry about if it's the right time or not because it's actually the wrong time because Jinzo's on the field. If you go to Yu-Gi-Oh! Wiki under Bait Doll, look under tips, they show you some other stuff. They tell you the basic stuff like you could destroy Magic Cylinder, Mirror Force, stuff like that. You can use it to activate your opponent's chain burst, so that way now when he plays traps to counter your plays, he'll just hurt himself. Since you can use Bait Doll over and over again, you can use cards like cards that get spell counters. They have a couple other little recommendations. If your opponent uses Dust Tornado and then sets a card, you could just Bait Doll it. Since it just got set that turn, it's the wrong timing, so it gets destroyed. So on and so on. But the main thing was using Bait Doll to make one of your cards unchainable, so that way you can get the effect. So that's my Yugi tip.